Good afternoon, all, and welcome to Rec Talk. So a few things to talk about today. We're going to talk about the new offensive coordinator hire, no longer looking for one. Few open positions over here on offense still. We're going to talk about some portal stuff. But before we get into that, I'm sure, everyone has seen the news. Mike Leach passed last night. From what I have read, he had what appears to be a massive heart attack Sunday night and was not able to regain consciousness from that event forward. This is a just tragic major loss in the world of college football. Mike Leach, everyone's saying he's a national treasure. That's absolutely true. The first time I kind of caught on to Mike Leach, I think I had my YouTube kind of autoplay through. It was, going through different coach press conferences. I think I was watching like a Saban press conference, and it turns on Mike Leach. I think he was at Washington State at the time. And I'm working, and then I just hear, and this is at a press conference, Mike Leach is in football press conference. I hear, I don't think there is a Bigfoot. Yeah, I don't think there is a Bigfoot, because if there was a Bigfoot, and goes on this like 10-minute in-depth explanation on the intricacies on whether Bigfoot exists or not. And I'm like, I have got to look this guy up. Who is this guy? He gives probably the most eloquent opinions on Halloween candy. He talked about it at a halftime interview, like one of those 30-second halftime interviews, and it blew up the world of college football. Then every reporter around that time starts, like Kirby Smart was asked about his favorite candy. No one answered it as well as Mike Leach, though. Absolutely fantastic human being, and we haven't even talked about one hell of a coach. And I'll tell you this, it's so Mike Leach that he just creates his own form of offense in the air raid. Like, he looks at the world of college football and says, nah, not good enough. I need my own thing. And, has had a, phenomenal coaching career. So my heart goes out to the family of Mike Leach and the Mississippi State football community. There will never be another like Mike Leach, and college football will never be the same without Mike Leach. So tragic. All right, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of the video. So Georgia Tech has hired Buster Faulkner as their offensive coordinator. So I've marked it off the list. No longer looking for a coordinator, which is fantastic. This comes before the early signing period. Possibly he's able to make some rumbles in the recruiting front for Tech. He was an offensive analyst for the University of Georgia for the past 3 seasons. And able to do some really good things at Georgia. It's always nice when you hire a coordinator or someone on your staff that has been a part of a really successful program. And as much as it pains Tech fans to admit it, Georgia has the most successful program in the country right now. And he's been there for 3 years, learned how they do things. Seems good to me. So the thing that's impressive with his stint at Georgia, and look, Georgia at times kind of has a play calling by committee effect. Obviously, Todd Monken is, the president of the offense, but there are times where Bobo will call a play, Faulkner will call a play, Monken will call a play. So it's not like Faulkner hasn't had any hand in the play calling at Georgia. What's impressive to me is his development of Stetson Bennett. Now, look, this isn't a hate on Stetson Bennett video. And let me actually say it this way as far as his development of Stetson. When I played high school football, every offseason we would go to Furman to hone our skills. And it was quite interesting, actually. It was like a full week of just developing as a quarterback. And at the time, Furman had a really, really naturally talented quarterback, a guy named Ingram Martin. You can look him up. Ingram Martin ended up getting drafted by Green Bay. I don't think he had much playing time in the NFL, but the guy could throw a football through a brick wall. He phenomenal talent. And because of that, he became not so fundamentally sound, though. He could get away with not having very good footwork. He could get away with not being, super squared up with his hips and shoulders. Even like with his throwing motion, when you're throwing a football, you really want to pull your left arm in. That naturally pulls your right arm out. He wasn't as fundamentally sound on some of these mechanical things, and he was able to get away with it. Just because he was so naturally talented. Stetson Bennett is a talented quarterback, but he's not someone who I would say is just pops off the paper at you, naturally talented, has a ton of God-given just arm strength, these type of things. He has decent arm strength, but he's not an elite arm strength quarterback. What he does have is excellent fundamentals and excellent mechanics for a quarterback. If he didn't, he wouldn't be where he is now, right? Because he can't make up for not having good fundamentals with just natural talent. And I'll give you a good example. And this is what I respect about Georgia's offense. Georgia does a very good job with working to the strengths of their roster. So Georgia most likely has 2 first-round talents at one position, tight end. And their offense is built around that. Now with Stetson, he's somewhat mobile, and they have a lot of speed at wide receiver and athleticism. So particularly in the red zone, they'll roll him out. And that way, if the pass isn't open, he's already kind of coming downhill. He can take off running. When you do that, many quarterbacks, instead of kind of bowing out away from the line of scrimmage and coming back downhill, they'll be very flat. And when you're very flat, it's hard when you're rolling out to get your hips turned and your shoulder pointed at the target. Stetson does a very good job at bubbling out, coming back downhill. One, so he can get his hips turned and make a good throw. If you can't get when you're rolling out, your hips turn back, you'll end up sailing the ball, most likely. It also gets him downhill to run if he needs to. And I would have to think that this is in part due to the development of him with Buster Faulkner. Buster Faulkner has done a very good job at I think, developing Stetson, and Stetson spoke very highly of him at the Heisman trophy ceremony. So, a lot of nice things to see there. Plus, it always feels good to snatch one from your rival. Now, he does have 15 years of experience coaching college football, running back to like 2007. First notable bit of experience, he was at Middle Tennessee State for 5 years. He wasn't originally the OC. And I'm not quite sure what happened in the article. It says, not quite sure. I think it was actually from the Rumble seat. But he ends up taking over play calling responsibilities in his first year there and a 5-year tenure, and was the play caller for the rest of the time he was there. They were able to do things at Middle Tennessee State on offense they hadn't done before. I don't think they had ever averaged 31 points a game. They had not had 5,000-yard seasons, which they did 3 times while I was there. The other thing is, for 3 years, he worked with Jeep Wade. And this is important. Jeep Wade, if you haven't seen, is the coach that we hired for offensive line. And they both seem to have, in their hearts, the same mentality. I think Faulkner likes to be a more run-first, run-oriented offense. Jeep Wade is very good at developing linemen that do that, very physical linemen, in-your-face linemen. So then he takes a job at Arkansas State, which is probably, other than his stint at Georgia, the most impressive bit of his resume. He was there for 2016 and 2018. Every year he was there, they led the Sun Belt in total offense. And then I think in 2017, I could be wrong about that, they were 17th in the nation in total offense and 21st in pass. And I think that's important too. It seems like the tools they had on that team more suited a pass-first offense, and he adjusted to that. So he kind of has a track record of playing to the strengths and, developing a team that wasn't as good on offense maybe before. So very successful coordinator at Arkansas State. He then goes to Southern Miss for a year where there's not, they were kind of average. There's nothing really of note to talk about there. But then hired by Georgia, who, obviously wins a national title while he's there, and he, develops Stetson Bennett to probably his ceiling, right? Being the absolute best quarterback that he can be. So I think most Tech people are very happy with this hire. There are some that still think like you could have went and got a bigger name, especially with the money in your, a coaching budget. But I think this is the right hire for Tech. It would be very difficult for Tech to go snatch somebody who's an offensive coordinator, a successful offensive coordinator, right? You wouldn't want an unsuccessful coordinator at a Power 5 school that's a big name. Those guys are going to want generally a head coaching job somewhere. So we're able to go get someone from a very successful program and elevate them because he wasn't the coordinator there. So I'm very excited to see what Faulkner is able to come in and do with, the current roster. I'd love to see how he can develop Zach Pyron. And it will be interesting to see how him and Winky play. I would think Winky still coaches quarterbacks, right? If you have a Heisman-winning quarterback on your roster, it doesn't make any sense for him to coach anything other than quarterbacks. Now, Faulkner did coach tight ends, I believe, while he was at Arkansas State, but it's not what he is, at his core. He's a quarterback coach at the core, but we might see him coach tight ends and be the offensive coordinator. So this will be interesting. All right. Now, if you haven't liked this video, go ahead and do that. If you haven't subscribed, you're going to need to do that too. This is the best Georgia Tech football YouTube channel. You got to do it. Also, we're having Cdogg and I are having a live show this Sunday, which is the 18th. And if you're a Georgia Tech football fan, you're not going to want to miss that. That's going to be the premier show for Georgia Tech football. And also, quickly, if you want to support the channel, there's a link, there's a PayPal link in the description. All right, so portal news. Georgia Tech has landed a wide receiver out of the portal in Chase Lane, a 6 foot, like 190, 195 pound kid, 3-star, coming from Texas A&M, which is also very important. This comes the same day that Buster Faulkner is named the OC at Georgia Tech, which was yesterday. By the way, it's not 100% official. It's as official as it can be, I guess. This was first reported, the OC hire by Football Scoop, corroborated by Kelly Quinlan, Bryce Koo, and anyone who would know is saying he's the next OC. But we're able to get Chase Lane out of Texas A&M. Very important. There's a mass exodus out of Texas A&M right now, and Texas A&M is loaded with talent. They didn't do well this year. They underplayed their talent. Remember, they had the #1 recruiting class last year. So he had 48 catches, 617 yards. Decent numbers for a wide receiver. This is a big get. He's a talented kid, and I think maybe an even more important thing is he able to get anyone to follow him out of Texas A&M? And we could have a kind of sneaky good wide receiver core if we're able to keep Leo Blackburn, which isn't, a foregone conclusion. Malik Rutherford, Chase Lane, probably lose McCullum. I don't know. It would be nice to keep them. That could be a very solid receiving core for you. The other thing is he's already tweeting at Texas A&M's quarterback, Haynes King. Haynes King's a Texas kid, 6'3", higher, like 87, 88, 4-star recruit, very talented, still has 2 years of eligibility left. So if we were able to get Haynes to follow him, that would be huge too. It would be very interesting to see with a quarterback with SEC experience bringing over his wide receiver, what I think is a very good offensive coordinator hire with the right offensive line coach, Chris Winkie working with the quarterbacks, Brent Key with, kind of the correct work ethic and vision for the program. We could see some very good things happen for Georgia Tech next year. But tell me what you think. Do you like the hire? Did Georgia Tech sell themselves short? That's what some of these people from the Rumble seat seem to be thinking. So comment what you think, and I will talk to you guys soon.